You might not believe who's at the end of this list, but if Pope Leo XIV actually follows through with his plans, it could upend a long-standing tradition in a heartbeat. Right now, behind those closed Vatican doors, something unexpected is unfolding, and frankly, not many are ready for it. There's been a group of cardinals who have quietly wielded significant influence in the Catholic Church for years. These individuals have been central to decision-making, shaping doctrine, and leaving their mark across continents. But with the arrival of Pope Leo XIV, everything could shift dramatically, not just in minor symbolic ways, but in a manner that alters the course of the Church itself. Imagine some of the most powerful voices in the Church being sidelined, reassigned, or completely removed from their positions. This isn't just a simple reshuffling of internal politics. It's a matter of legacy and the future identity of the Church as we step into the 21st century. It raises the question of who will write the next chapter of global faith, the architects of the past, or a fresh vision for what lies ahead. Let's consider the names we're discussing. They aren't just religious figures, they're pivotal players, the guardians of tradition, and sometimes defenders of change in controversial ways. Under Pope Leo's leadership, their footing might become quite precarious. You know, the viewers clicking on this video aren't looking for a history lesson. They can feel that something is amiss. There's a shift happening within the Vatican, and such shifts rarely stay contained in Rome. They extend out to parishes, schools, missions, the media, and into the hearts of millions of believers. That's why it's important. The murmurs echoing from those marble halls are growing louder with every passing moment. So, who's on shaky ground? What does this mean for Pope Leo's larger vision? We can reflect on Pope Francis, who is known for his compassionate, open, and inclusive approach, emphasizing mercy and outreach around the world. His selections for new cardinals echoed these values, lifting up those who leaned toward reform and decentralization. However, Pope Leo seems to be taking a different route, one marked by an emphasis on structure and clarity. He isn't aiming to dismantle the Church, but might be focused on reinforcing its very foundation. Instead of chasing headlines, his sights are set on creating a long-lasting impact, the kind of transformation that shifts the entire blueprint rather than just fine-tuning the edges. Now, the big question at the heart of this discussion is, which cardinals represent the past, and who might be the ones to shape the future? There's a storm brewing in the Vatican, and it's kind of fascinating to watch it unfold. You see, some of the most influential figures in modern Catholicism might soon find themselves out of a job. The atmosphere is thick with tension. But what's intriguing is that none of this is being announced openly. There are no press releases, no bulletins, and certainly no public lists explaining who's being welcomed or who's being shown the door. Instead, you can sense the shifts, the body language, the tone of conversations, all hinting at a significant transformation in church leadership. Insiders are already hinting that changes are afoot. The whispers suggest reassessments, delays, and an almost palpable silence where certainty used to reign. As you start to connect all the dots, a rather unsettling picture emerges. Top names in the Church are in a precarious position. At the end of it all, one name stands out, a person seen as untouchable, who might be at risk under Pope Leo XIV's new regime. It's unexpected, the kind of shakeup that makes you sit up and take notice. Leo, the man at the helm, is intriguing. He didn't arrive at the papacy by being the loudest voice in the room, nor was he the most charming. Instead, it's his ability to think strategically, always being 10 steps ahead, that's getting attention. While many outsiders were oblivious to his full potential before he was elected, those closer to him understood the impact he could have. His leadership style is markedly different from that of his predecessor, Pope Francis. Where Francis embraced a soft, inclusive approach aimed at nurturing and mercy, Leo leans into structure and a commanding presence. This isn't just another episode of Vatican politics. It's a pivotal moment that resonates far beyond its walls. As we look closer at this unfolding drama, it's clear that the old era is phasing out, and a new one is on the horizon. It all pivots on one decision, the choice of one man in a single seat, the Pope. And it raises the question of what might happen to those who once believed themselves invulnerable. In the world of the Vatican, where whispers of change fill the air, it's a moment of reckoning that many are watching with bated breath. There's something intriguing about Pope Leo XIV. He's not your typical leader. He's cold, but in a measured way. What really stands out about him is his commitment to establishing a church that's not just warm and welcoming, but also clear and consistent in its teachings. His writings may be dense, but they reflect a profound respect for long-standing traditions and scholastic theology. To him, doctrine serves as the bedrock of faith, something solid and unyielding, not merely a suggestion to ponder. But don't mistake him for someone stuck in the past. In fact, Leo XIV might just be one of the most progressive popes we've seen in a while. His vision for the Church's future is less about being loud and more about being robust. He recognizes that many churches today seem overly fixated on surface-level messaging, neglecting the deep spiritual substance that truly matters. For Leo, it's not about opening every door wide for the sake of popularity. It's about ensuring the Church stands strong when challenges arise. His leadership approach contrasts sharply with that of Pope Francis, who often chose cardinals based on their ability to connect with the people. Under Francis, the focus was on community outreach and reform, sometimes at the risk of diluting internal consistency. Leo perceives this as a vulnerability and is more concerned with permanence than popularity. His early actions signal a desire to cultivate a church that can provide clear guidance amid chaos, restoring a voice of spiritual authority rather than merely being a comforting presence. While he holds deep respect for what came before him, including Francis's global outreach and compassion for the poor, Leo feels that the Church is now entering a new era, one that demands different approaches and tools. Behind the scenes, he's meticulously assembling a group of advisors who share this vision, not the flashy, reform-minded personalities of the past, but thinkers, builders, and disciplined individuals. In this noisy age, he understands that clarity is powerful. It's fascinating, really. Although you might not see dramatic speeches or sweeping changes right away, there's a quiet but significant shift underway. Leo is recalibrating the Church's energy, moving from an external focus to cultivating internal strength, from mere reaction to genuine reformation. And this transformation starts with the very people he surrounds himself with. His inner circle will undoubtedly differ from his predecessors, and that difference creates a palpable tension in the air. The air in the Vatican is thick with tension, as it feels like everyone is holding their breath. Some of the Church's most influential figures, those who have shaped entire eras under Francis's leadership, now find themselves on shaky ground. This isn't due to any shortcomings on their part. Rather, it's because their vision of authority and order just doesn't align with the new direction being steered by Leo XIV. Leo is known for his strategic maneuvers, and while changes won't be announced with much fanfare, they'll happen quietly. And once they begin, there's no turning back. What does this mean for the cardinals already entrenched in their roles? Well, some will adapt, others might resist. A few could find themselves transitioning to quieter positions, perhaps in distant dioceses or with roles that hold more symbolic weight. On the flip side, there may be individuals who are elevated simply out of loyalty or necessity. However, it's clear that for many, the future looks precarious. Leo's vision for the Church seems focused on doctrinal consistency over emotional appeal, which means those who don't fit that framework might soon find themselves sidelined. We're at a pivotal moment. The philosophy guiding Leo is evident, and with the stakes rising, attention shifts toward those who may be affected in this power reallocation. Each name on the list carries significance, but that significance may not hold the same weight anymore. The first to feel this shift might be a cardinal known for his humility, whose once bright legacy under Leo XIV is beginning to fade. To grasp the significance of reshuffling a handful of Vatican officials, it's essential to understand the real role of a cardinal, not just the ceremonial aspect, but the actual workings of power within the Catholic Church. Once you appreciate how these cardinals operate, it becomes clear they are not merely spiritual advisors. They are architects of influence. They don't just shepherd faith, they actively shape the Church's future. Formally, cardinals are the Pope's closest collaborators, tasked with governing the Church, advising the Holy Father, and notably, electing the next Pope when the time comes. This last detail is crucial. Anyone donned in red today might play a key role in selecting or becoming the next Pope. This reality turns each cardinal into a significant pivot point for the Church's future. But what lies beneath those red robes is even more complex. There exists a web of departments, responsibilities, rivalries, and far-reaching influence that operates out of the public eye. Let me tell you about the inner workings of the Vatican and some key players involved. Cardinal Mauro Gambetti, for instance, isn't one to grab headlines with bold speeches or strategic maneuvers. In fact, he embodies a different kind of strength. His presence is calm and pastoral. He represents the gentle side of the Church, a man of humility and quiet dedication. However, the dynamics in the Vatican are complex. Each cardinal typically manages significant Vatican dicasteries, which function like ministries. These roles aren't just bureaucratic. They have a profound influence on how the Church teaches, governs, and interacts with the world. Some cardinals take center stage, shaping public theology and making waves with their words. Others prefer to work behind the scenes, exerting authority that remains mostly unseen. In the Vatican, real power often lies beneath the surface. It's not merely about being in front of the cameras, it's more about access and the ability to influence decisions. The positions held by cardinals decide everything, from global evangelization to family life, liturgy, education, and even the painstaking processes involved in canonizing saints. This covert power influences who gets appointed, which voices are amplified during synods, and what kind of theology gets written into official church documents. When a pope starts to shuffle the power structure, removing or reassessing even one cardinal can signal much more than just an internal change. It can alter the course of the Church for years to come. These adjustments are closely observed because in the Vatican, when one domino falls, others tend to follow. Right now, the focus is shifting toward Gambetti. While he has been seen as the soft-spoken heart of the Church, his style may not align with Pope Leo XIV's vision, which emphasizes strategic strength and clarity. This juxtaposition creates a significant narrative. one that underscores the evolving landscape of Catholic leadership. It's fascinating to consider how these shifts might not only affect the immediate future, but also lay the groundwork for generations to come. Let me share a bit about a remarkable figure in the Church, Cardinal Gambetti. He truly embodies the values of the Franciscan tradition, carrying with him a spirit of humility and service throughout his life. Gambetti is known for being a leader who listens intently, always prioritizing the mission of the Church as a refuge for the faithful, rather than just an institution. His approach aligned beautifully with the vision of Pope Francis, who deeply appreciated that type of leadership. Before taking on the prestigious role of Archpriest of St. Peter's Basilica, Gambetti led a more conventional life as a Franciscan friar. It was a simple existence, grounded in prayer and service, where he lived out the values he cherished. Becoming Archpriest of such a significant place is undoubtedly a major honor, but Gambetti viewed it as a spiritual duty rather than a power position. He dedicated himself to making the basilica a more welcoming space, one that emphasized mercy over control. His goal was for the Church to connect with the people, to, as he put it, smell like the sheep instead of dominating from above. However, the landscape of the Church is shifting. Pope Leo XIV is now at the helm, facing different challenges that require more clear-cut leadership, structure, and decisiveness. His early actions signal a focus on the style of leadership as well as who holds authority. In this context, Gambetti's softer tone and symbolic governance might be seen as insufficient. It's as if the old ways of thinking, which Gambetti represents, are being reassessed during this new papacy that prioritizes coherence and a strong administrative backbone. It's important to clarify that if Gambetti's role does change, it won't be due to punishment or demotion. Rather, if anything occurs, it will likely be a quiet shift to a less prominent position, an acknowledgement of his contributions with a gradual exit from the public eye. This is the typical way the Vatican maneuvers to avoid scandal while still moving forward. Even such a gentle transition can carry a heavy implication. Gambetti's potential reassignment signals the end of an era focused on pastoral care, making way for one that leans into strategies and structural management. What's particularly striking about his situation is that it may mark the first distinct departure from the leadership style embodied by Pope Francis. If someone like Gambetti, who represents Franciscan humility and spirituality, can be considered expendable, it reveals the new expectations under Leo XIV. Now, it's not just about inspiring people, it's about managing effectively and building a lasting foundation within the Church. Some insiders believe that Gambetti was never quite meant to fit into this new mold. I've always found myself more at ease in a quiet ministry role rather than seeking a prominent leadership position within the Church. I think that's how many feel, but the truth is, comfort doesn't secure your place in the Vatican. The Church is evolving, and those leading must align with its new direction or make way for others who will. As someone like Gambetti fades into the background, the new cardinal stepping up is about to dive into a whirlwind of controversy. Where Gambetti symbolized peace, this new figure will be tasked with the weight of judgment, sanctity, and legacy. The decisions made in such a role are irreversible. Every appointment becomes a theological statement. In this current climate, where the Church is striving to regain its moral compass amid skepticism, such a role is more political than it seems. Consider Cardinal Morello Samaro. He's quietly influential as the prefect of the dicastery for the causes of saints. Initially, this role may sound more ceremonial, tied to statues and feast days, but the reality is anything but passive. To canonize a saint is to make a profound statement about values. It reflects who the Church venerates, who it holds as role models of faith, and which stories will be immortalized for future generations. In a time when narratives have the power to shape influence, that responsibility is enormous. Ciamaro, appointed by Pope Francis, has approached the canonization process with remarkable theological insight and unwavering loyalty to the Church's traditions. He isn't one to seek the spotlight. Instead, he operates thoughtfully behind the scenes, ensuring that every candidate for sainthood adheres to the Church's rigorous standards. He's been just the right fit for a Vatican that values humility over headlines. Yet, there's a shift on the horizon. As Pope Leo XIV steps in, the Church seems poised to embrace a new era, one where clear influence and a strong message may hold greater importance than the serene stewardship Ciamaro represents. Now, it's not just about whether someone is holy. It's also about what a canonization communicates to the world right now. Once, saints inspired reverence through quiet prayers and beautiful stained glass, but today, their roles are expected to engage in a global culture driven by compelling narratives, social connections, and digital interaction. Ciamaro, despite his theological prowess, may not have adapted to this new reality. You know, there's something curious happening in the Vatican right now. Pope Leo XIV seems poised to shake things up a bit, particularly with the way canonizations are managed. There's this growing concern about Cardinal Ciamaro. He's a solid theologian, no doubt about that. The teachings are sound, but here's the problem. He doesn't quite connect with the modern world. In an era where social media defines engagement, he doesn't resonate. For Pope Leo, who is aiming to bridge Catholicism with a younger audience, that's a significant issue. It's not that Ciamaro has made any scandalous mistakes or missteps that warrant criticism. It's more about fit. The Church is looking for fresh ways to convey its stories, especially to those younger Catholics, and Ciamaro's style seems a bit too old-fashioned. It's like the journey to sainthood he oversees feels anchored in a time before social media and the chaos that comes with it. Younger Catholics, and even those who are skeptical, are hungry for figures of faith who grapple with real-life issues, mental health, social injustice, the complexities of living in today's world. They want to see saints who feel relatable, who walked among us in the digital age rather than those from centuries past. But while Ciamaro maintains a quiet presence, he lacks the energetic approach that the Church needs right now. If whispers in the Vatican are to be believed, there's a desire for a more dynamic candidate in Ciamaro's place, someone who's not just about preserving legacies, but can leverage canonization as a means of evangelization. We're talking about a leader who will craft narratives of faith that engage a skeptical and searching populace, someone who understands how to elevate saints whose stories can cross cultural and continental divides. As conversations swirl, it seems likely that Ciamaro's tenure may be gracefully coming to an end. He'll no doubt be honored for his contributions, but it's clear that a shift towards a more vibrant and relatable figure might be on the horizon. And then there's the prospect of a successor who embodies an entirely different dynamic. This next cardinal could bring a striking contrast, a man not afraid of controversy, who embraces the challenges of contemporary doctrine. It would be someone whose views have sparked both admiration and debate, pushing the boundaries rather than simply accepting them. Under Pope Leo, it seems like that position might just be the most precarious one of all. Let me tell you about Cardinal Kevin Farrell. He holds an important position in the Vatican as the prefect of the dicastery for laity, family, and life. You'd think that would put him right in the thick of things regarding the everyday experiences of Catholics, especially families and young folks. Not too long ago, people viewed him as a capable leader. He was seen as someone who could effectively oversee the workings of a dicastery that sometimes struggles to marry tradition with what people need today. But lately, the buzz around him seems to have dwindled. It's not because of any scandals, rather it's more about a growing silence on his part. While the world around us has been evolving, families reshaping what they look like, young people stepping away from the church, and lay Catholics aspiring for deeper involvement, Farrell has remained rooted in a bureaucratic style. His way of operating is methodical, almost too measured for the pressing times we find ourselves in. This has led many to believe that he's not really tuned in. Instead of inspiring movements, he tends to make statements. Instead of uplifting others, he manages them. And that's becoming quite problematic. Pope Leo XIV appears to be signaling a desire to revitalize the Church's connection with everyday Catholics, not just through acknowledging their presence, but by genuinely collaborating with them. With Leo at the helm, there's a clear push to empower the laity, especially women, young people, and grassroots leaders who have felt sidelined for too long. The Pope seems intent on not just having the laity to be managed, but asking for real partners in his mission. Unfortunately, this collaborative spirit doesn't really align with Farrell's approach. His leadership style has often been more top-down, working within established structures, and that's certainly feeling out of sync with the direction the Church is heading. Today's laity, especially the younger ones, crave something different. They don't want to be simply managed anymore. They seek to be acknowledged, to have their voices heard, and to play an active role in the discourse. Yet, under Farrell's oversight, it seems many are still waiting for an invitation to the table. It's evident that there's a generational divide here. Farrell embodies an older, more institutional way of thinking where stability took precedence over agility, and clarity was prioritized over genuine collaboration. Meanwhile, younger Catholics who are grappling with modern culture are yearning for a seat and a say in shaping their faith experience. In the heart of the Vatican, there's a palpable shift happening. It's all about how leaders communicate, not only with words, but in understanding the spiritual experiences of the faithful. People crave action, engagement, and a sincere recognition that their life stories are influencing the Church, not merely responding to it. This is where Cardinal Farrell finds himself. He feels more like a manager than a messenger, more like a supervisor than a true partner. It's a tricky spot for him, especially considering his role as a Camilo of the Holy Roman Church. This position is critical. It involves overseeing church operations during the gaps between papacies, and it symbolizes a strong trust within the Vatican's framework. But here's the catch. With Pope Leo XIV redefining the essence of Vatican power, Farrell might embody the kind of legacy that Leo is eager to move past. It's not about being ineffective, but rather a fundamental clash of ideals. If Pope Leo decides to replace Farrell, it wouldn't just be a straightforward personnel shift. It would signal a serious shift in the Vatican's traditional structure, a bold statement that the old ways are being set aside in favor of empowering lay people. This is particularly significant for the laity, especially the youth and women who are beginning to demand more than mere representation. They want a voice that resonates, not one that merely filters their concerns. Should the Pope take that significant step, expect to see a thoughtfully selected successor, perhaps a younger individual who is more engaged and might even come from beyond the typical Roman elite. This would indicate a Vatican ready to act with audacity, not fear. As events unfold, every decision Leo makes will become increasingly visible and impactful. The focus now shifts to a cardinal who has definitely made waves, Cardinal Arthur Roche. His influence is felt far and wide, bringing both praise and critique. His role is central to the essence of Catholic identity, impacting how the Church prays, gathers, and perceives itself in today's world. Although many outside the Church may not know him, within Rome, Roche commands respect as the prefect of the Dicastery for Divine Worship and the discipline of the sacraments. He has authority over one of the most delicate areas of Catholic life, the liturgy. This isn't just about the words spoken during Mass, it's about the Church's very identity. The liturgy is where beliefs turn tangible, where theology connects with the congregation. It's in this space that the Church communicates its essence to its followers. In the realm of modern Catholicism, the atmosphere has become incredibly charged, especially under Pope Francis. There's been quite a shift in how things are done, particularly with the influence of a man named Roche. He took on the role of enforcing a clear direction, aiming to centralize the liturgy and minimize the use of older forms like the Latin Mass. This effort was underscored by a significant document, Traditionis Custodes, which came out in 2021, and placed strict limits on the celebration of the Tridentine Mass. This was quite the departure from the more lenient approach of Pope Benedict XVI. Roche believed that in the pursuit of unity within the Church, clarity was paramount. His mission was to bring that clarity to life, no matter the criticism that came his way. And boy, did the criticism come. Traditionalist groups rallied against him, accusing Roche of stifling a sacred heritage and transforming a centuries-old spiritual lineage into something almost bureaucratic. On the flip side, moderates felt his approach was clumsy, only serving to deepen the divides rather than mend them. Parish priests found themselves in a tough spot, balancing their allegiance to Rome with the actual needs of their communities. Even amidst the storm, Roche stood firm. He sent out letters and clarifications, enforcing the rules with the conviction of a military leader, arguing that liturgical unity was crucial for theological unity. This resolute stance earned him some respect within certain Vatican circles. However, with Pope Leo XIV now at the helm, just having resolve might not be enough. Leo appears to be taking a more nuanced view of leadership, one that appreciates both tradition and a pastoral approach. While he's unlikely to reverse the liturgical course set by Francis, there's potential for him to reassess how it's been implemented. Unity is undeniably important, but listening is equally vital. Thus far, Roche's time in office hasn't been characterized by much dialogue. Rather, it's been marked by decisive actions. The crux of the matter isn't Roche's beliefs. Many aspects of his views resonate with what Leo seems to value: reverence, order, and doctrinal clarity. Instead, the real issue lies in how these views translate into action. It looks like Leo might be searching for someone who can uphold the necessary structure without inciting conflict. He may want a balance, encouraging the same direction Francis has set, but with a more considerate approach, less rigid and more about reconciliation. Roche now finds himself at a pivotal moment in church governance. He symbolizes a time when authority needed to be re-established. Yet, it seems Pope Leo might advocate for a new kind of engagement, steering the Church toward inclusivity rather than just maintaining the status quo. Such a transformation calls for a different kind of leadership, one with a new tone and presence. I want to share what I think is a pivotal moment for the Catholic Church. Picture this. Pope Leo XIV might be on the brink of making some significant changes that could redefine the way the Vatican operates. This isn't just about updating policies. It's a message that emphasizes empathy and rebuilding trust, rather than just enforcing rules. Some insiders have a theory that the Pope already has someone in mind for a key position, someone who respects the reforms established by Vatican II, but is also willing to listen to traditionalists. The goal wouldn't be to reverse progress, but to ensure everyone feels included as the Church moves forward. If this person is appointed, it could usher in a new era of the Church's liturgical practices, one that leans more towards collaboration instead of conflict. Now, let's talk about the past. Cardinal Roche's legacy is secure. He carried out necessary reforms, no doubt. But as Pope Leo looks ahead, perhaps there's a realization that the time for strict enforcement is over. Instead, a new phase focused on restoration might be beginning. Where Roche enforced rules like a military leader, Leo seems to be looking for a figure who can serve as a bridge between different factions within the Church. Enter Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, quite possibly the most discussed figure in recent Church history. His writings have ignited passionate debates around the globe. Some people admire him, while others fear the direction he represents. What makes him stand out? Well, he's not just another high-ranking official in the Vatican. He is, in many ways, the intellectual architecture behind much of Pope Francis's theological direction. Fernandez holds an extremely influential position as the prefect of the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith. This role isn't just about administration, it's about shaping what the Church teaches and how it engages with contemporary issues. Handpicked by Francis for both his intellect and visionary ideas, he shares a close bond with the Pope, united in their belief that doctrine should be more pastoral than punitive. His approach to church teaching focuses on real-life experiences instead of abstract concepts. Fernandez has always advocated for engaging with the complexities of faith rather than avoiding them. His writings challenge the rigid interpretations of theology, promoting a more compassionate outlook on spirituality as it relates to today's world. However, this openness hasn't come without challenges. Since he took office, traditionalists have accused him of diluting church teachings. It's fascinating to witness this tug-of-war as the Church navigates the tensions between tradition and a more modern understanding of faith. It feels like we're on the edge of a historic transition, and I can't help but wonder how it will all unfold. In recent times, there's been a lot of chatter about the direction of the Church, especially regarding Pope Leo XIV and how he might reshape leadership within it. There's this noticeable tension between him and the broadly embraced theological style of his predecessor, Pope Francis. Many feel that Francis has adopted an approach that tends to blur the lines of doctrine. Some supporters see him as someone really in tune with the struggles of everyday people, while critics view him as a threat to the Church's core identity. They argue that his prioritization of pastoral care might leave doctrinal clarity in shambles. On the other hand, Pope Leo XIV holds a different perspective. He has a genuine reverence for tradition and clarity. For him, doctrine is vital. It isn't just a conversation starter, but the very foundation of the Church. He believes that clarity breeds trust, especially in a world that's become increasingly noisy and confusing. This difference between him and figures like Cardinal Fernandez is significant. While Fernandez is known for pushing boundaries and embracing tough questions, Leo may perceive that as a weakness rather than bravery. If Leo were to make a significant move to redefine the Church's leadership, a change involving Fernandez would speak volumes, not just about personnel, but about a fundamental shift in doctrine altogether. It would signal a move back to clearer teachings and less experimentation, a departure from the principles that have guided the last decade, such as the importance of mercy and adaptable theology. Let's be clear, replacing someone like Fernandez wouldn't be a minor adjustment. It would be monumental. Given his deep connection to Francis's approach, removing him could be seen as stripping away one of the key elements of the previous papacy. The impact would definitely resonate, and while it may unfold with an air of quiet determination, the implications would be far-reaching. Rumors swirling around Rome suggest that if Pope Leo decides to restructure the doctrinal leadership, he might prefer someone with a more traditional tone, an individual capable of articulating teachings with scholarly rigor but without ruffling feathers. Someone who appreciates nuance but also knows when to keep discussions straightforward. In this potential new phase for the Church, it's clear that the stakes are very high. In the heart of the Vatican, there's this looming shift that's got everyone talking. Imagine, if Cardinal Fernandez were to step down, it would signal a substantial change. But believe it or not, that wouldn't even be the most astounding part. The real kicker is that the most influential figure in the Vatican could be next. Cardinal Pietro Parolin sits in a pivotal spot. He's not just another face in the crowd. He's the one who genuinely molds the Church's political stance globally. For anyone familiar with the inner workings of the Vatican, Parolin is synonymous with the institution itself. As the Secretary of State, he operates much like a prime minister, orchestrating the intricacies of Vatican diplomacy. He doesn't just support the Pope, he crafts the very narrative of how the Vatican engages with the world. With his finger firmly on the pulse, he's privy to conversations that most don't get to hear. For more than 10 years, he's been this calm, steady presence at the helm, a true pillar of Catholic influence. However, there's this nagging sense that power, in all its forms, isn't permanent. With Pope Leo XIV steering the ship now, it feels like Parolin's time might be shortening more quickly than we realize. He thrived throughout the Francis era, not by shouting from the rooftops or pushing an agenda, but by being a trusted diplomat. His pragmatism was refreshing in times of political discord and ethical complexity. He acted as a bridge, skillfully navigating tricky relationships with places like China, Russia, and the Middle East, all while keeping the West in the loop. Yet this approach hasn't pleased everyone. Some clamor for a stronger stance on pressing political and human rights issues, believing his gentler touch has muted the Church's moral voice in a landscape rife with division. They think Cardinal Leo is on the lookout for a new direction, one that's not just political but firmly defined. He seems to crave less ambiguity and more conviction, someone who won't just smooth over differences but rather draw clear lines. This puts Parolin in a tough spot. He's managed to hold on longer than many predicted, thanks largely to his vast institutional knowledge and a strong network of connections. But with the winds of change a-blowing, it's uncertain how long that will last. It feels like the ground could shift beneath him at any moment. There's a significant shift happening in the Vatican, and it all seems to revolve around one man, Cardinal Parolin. He's been a key player in the Church, but now, with Pope Leo XIV at the helm, his position is increasingly seen as a liability. It's fascinating, really. What used to be a network of influence is now more like a symbol of the old ways, standing in quiet opposition to the bold changes Leo wants to bring. If Leo truly intends to reform the inner workings of the Vatican, then Parolin is the pivotal figure. Should he be ousted, it won't merely be a change of personnel, it would signal the end of an era. The diplomatic approach that's been so carefully balanced, grounded in neutrality and gentle persuasion, would be replaced with something much more assertive. We're looking at a declaration of truth, an ecclesiastical shift that boldly engages with the complexities of our modern world. The ripple effects of such a move would be global. National bishops' conferences would alter their tones, and alliances would be recalibrated in line with Leo's renewed vision. The way the international community perceives the Church will undergo a transformation. It won't just be seen as a mediator or moral compass anymore. The Church's voice will change dramatically, reshaping how it communicates with 1 billion followers. As for the names being circulated for potential replacements, they align closely with Pope Leo's intentions. These are individuals deeply rooted in strong theological perspectives, ready to restore a sense of moral clarity to Vatican diplomacy. Unlike the softer approaches of the past, think of the nuanced finesse that Poland has often brought. Leo seems determined to be straightforward in his message. Here's where it gets emotional. Parolin isn't just another bureaucrat in the Vatican. For many, he represents the final connection to the legacy built by Pope Francis, a legacy steeped in compassion, nuanced understanding, and quiet strength. If that connection is severed, the implications will be clear. Leo isn't just inheriting the Church, he's completely redefining it. Imagine the enormity of that change. It's not a mere reshuffle, it's a revolution, and it brings with it a seismic question. Who will step into the shoes of these leaders, and what will their vision for the Church look like? We're not just talking about new appointments here. This is about a major directional shift, a transformation in leadership style, and a new voice that will represent millions around the world. What's on the horizon could determine if the Church emerges as a more dominant, authoritative force, or if it splinters under the pressure of its own evolution. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Keep your eyes open for who Pope Leo might choose to lead next, because this will shape the future of faith in ways we can only begin to imagine. Don't miss out on the next chapter. It could be pivotal in understanding what lies ahead.